Hey there, friends, and welcome to Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. I'm Teresa McCloy.
And I'm Erica Vinson. We are so grateful you're listening in today. Here on the podcast, each week, we want to have real conversations to help you grow successful and sustainable coaching businesses and yet stay grounded to what truly matters.
We come on each and every week to share practical tools, honest stories, and our own experiences as coaches, as well as invite some great guests to show up and support us on some episodes. We want to help you as a coach to live from a place of rest, not rush.
So, whether you're just getting started or you've been coaching for years, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's conversation.
Erica, I am excited that we're once again coming into one of our 7 P's of business. We're almost there, people. So hang with us. If you've been listening in each and every week, we are down to the final 3. And the next one that we're going to talk about, or the one that we're going to talk about today, is actually the P of processes. Up to this point, we have talked about planning. We have talked about, let me do them in order. That might be better, Erica. We talked about purpose. We've talked about plan. We've talked about product. That's an important thing when you have a business, or services in our case, a lot of times. Particulars is where we talked about last week, which is your key performance indicators. And today we're going to talk about processes. Every good business has processes. So we're up to 5 of our 7 Ps, and you're not behind. So, Erica, where can they find the resource? We have a download for all of this. Let's share with them where that's at and how they can find it, besides just going back and listening to previous episodes.
Yes, you can download the PDF guide that goes with this series at thereallifeprocess.com/7, SEVEN. And remember, we spell real life with one L.
We do. I was just in a conversation today with someone, and he was going to share the link out about our summit. And if you're listening to this in real time, the summit actually starts tomorrow on August the 14th. So if you listen to podcast in real time, we're doing an online summit for 2 days. And its link is thereallifeprocess.com/summit. And we try to make our links super simple. We're grateful to Rachel on our team that takes care of all of that behind the scenes stuff. But it's not too late to join the summit. It's absolutely free. It's about tending to your inner life, rested success. So, a couple of resources for you, the resource that goes with this podcast and the resources to come on the summit. And if it's too late and you have the next couple of days scheduled, no problem. Go to the link anyway, because you can actually purchase the recordings for only $29. We don't want you to miss out. Some great speakers there as well. So there's the plug for the podcast today. But let's come back around and let's talk about this idea of processes in our coaching practices, our coaching businesses. What do we mean when we're talking about a process, Erica?
Processes really create margin and space.
Mm.
And so they allow for teams to work together collaboratively, and they keep us from just managing. And so some of what we're going to be talking about today is, yes, it's organization and systems. And whether you have resistance to that, just invite you to welcome that because it might feel rigid if you're a creative and a visionary, but also just to expand your perspective a little bit and say, okay, what's possible if I really embrace some processes in the work that I do?
And so there's some different types of processes. There's organizational processes. Most of you as solopreneurs in the coaching space, you're not thinking of things like big organizations. But when I work with businesses, they are thinking, what's the structure of a whole organization? There's financial processes. How am I going to track my money? How am I going to track my revenue, my expenses? There's people processes. We'll get into that a little bit. Project processes. And then the one thing that you will notice in the download always, if there's somebody that might be needed on your team as a contractor or as somebody that you say, this is my inner circle that helps me with my business, One thing you might consider in this space is at some point in creating processes, you might need an attorney. You might need some legal advice. And you're like, what do processes and legal have to do with each other? We'll talk about that as we dive deeper into this conversation. But Erica, let's just step back and say, okay, where does God talk about processes in scripture?
Yeah, we're going to go straight to Genesis, right at the beginning. Flip your Bible open, and in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and that was the first order that we're introduced to. And so when you look at creation, there is order and there is a process to that has real intentionality. And so it's there present, and then all the way through scripture, there are processes, but it's right there in the beginning.
It is. And one of the scriptures we reference in the handout around this is in First Corinthians, actually, in the New Testament, chapter 14, verse 40 says, everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way.
Hmm.
That just blesses my soul because I love order and I love processes. I love structure. Even the structure that we've created in our coaching process is a process. The name of our business is the Real Life Process. So, just to go a little deep, for me, in my own story, a process feels like it's always growing and it's always changing. It's never like I wrote it down once. This is the way we'll always do it. It's in process. I could have called it real life business or whatever. I also really love the word framework. Framework and process feel like it's open, it's living, and it's breathing. I really had to learn that about internal processes for our team and for me myself is, as you said, you can get caught up in, I didn't do it the same way as I did last time. Probably not, because you're maybe a different person than you were 4 months ago when you wrote down your onboarding system for your clients. And you're like, oh, I've grown and I've changed. And I really like doing it this way. That's part of the process itself is I start with some things and I continue to redesign it and relook at it. But don't let that overwhelm you as, is this work ever done? It can be, but you don't want to do it and then set it away and nobody ever uses it or references it. So I don't know. What's your thought when you think of the word process?
Oh, my mind is just spinning. I'm thinking of one of our coaches in certification that said, even in our recent cohort, actually, I'm looking at this and it could be all in order, but maybe it's more like a roundabout and it's about the flow of it and just being able to use this process in its totality, but it doesn't have to be in a specific order. And I think just having a process provides a framework that really could be supportive.
Yeah.
And it's like the trellis and the vine. There's space to breathe in there. And so it gives a space for the trellis or for the vine to climb and a place to go to. And processes do the same.
One of the things I've noticed over the years of being a business owner, and I've owned a brick and mortar store, I've ran businesses out of my home. Now I have the coaching business that we have and where we help other coaches. And we have a team. We have 4 people that are contractors on our team. And so processes come into play when you are working with others greatly. I would say that. Even if you are a solopreneur and there's things that you don't do often, it's helpful to have a process of how you do something written down because if you don't do it every day or once a week or those types of things, it you can go, did I miss a step? What happens here? How do I do this? So let's dive in a little bit to how do you do things? That's what a process is. How do I do this? And over the years of that, I think we can get too detailed. I just want to say that. You and I have had that experience where we've worked in organizations where every screenshot, every step, everything about how to do something, like in a technology and a software, is written down. And if you aren't aware, software changes quickly. So just as soon as you get that whole thing created, it'll be different the next time the software is updated. Or how you might press a certain key on the keyboard might be different than how I might click on it with my mouse. So that's not the kind of thing we're talking about here. We're talking about what are the stages to creating the document? What can I capture? What can I do if I were to let someone else do this for me, or they needed a sub for me, or I just need the reminder of a checklist for my own self? Let's dive in to what I call 5 stages in this documenting process. First of all, identifying the process you want to write down. So, Erica, when you think about this, what's something that comes to mind for you? Not only do you work here at the Real Life Process and as our network director, helping our certification program, run all of that. So we have those things that you work in, but just in your own solo business as a coach, what's a process that comes up for you?
Onboarding clients.
There you
And
go.
I do it in individual business, but we do it, of course, with the real life process as well. And so just naming that, that's something that happens repeatedly. And so the process is so important, just identifying that there needs to be a system there.
So there's the first thing. It's just give it a name.
Mm.
What is this? It's the onboarding process. And I think an important next step is we're going to write these things down. So if we're going to write them down, where am I going to store them? Where are they going to all gather? We're pretty aware in technology. There's lots of different places I could store this stuff. So I could store it just as a Word document somewhere in a folder on my computer. I could print out that process and store it in the old yellow file system of here's my process. I get it out every time. That's fine too. You could store it in Google. You could store it in Dropbox. Maybe you have a task management software. I personally have learned that we use task management software, but I want the document itself to live somewhere else so that I can update it and write into it. So just whatever feels good for you. What are you familiar with? So, Erica, I'll just ask you. I'm going to just interview Erica as a solopreneur here. Where do you store some of your processes?
For individual coaching that I do for my business, a lot of it is in a task management software because I am a solopreneur. And so I have access to it. But for the business and with the team at the Real Life Process, we use Google Drive a lot because it can be shared and edited by other teammates, and it's available to everyone.
Yeah. So that's just a pre-decision because some of the places we can get hung up on is like, okay, I'm going to write this thing, but where's it going to live? I do believe that using cloud storage can be the best way because you're going to update your computer at some point or your hard drive. So if it's out there in the cloud, you can just click back in and reference to it. And when you get ready, if you ever do to expand your team, to have a virtual assistant, it's easy to just share that folder with them. And then now they're in your process folder. So we're ready to create it. You hear us talk often here on the podcast about something we call a mind map. So when we think of, and just because this is an easy and simple process that everybody needs is to onboard a client, what are some of the things that you might put, you have that in the center, onboarding a client. What are some of the things you might put on your mind map, on your circles out around that? What are a few steps to that?
Offering a discovery call or a follow-up email, having the contract or agreement ready, and how am I sending that? What software am I using? How am I collecting payment for the investment that a client's making? When will that actually go to them? So there's details in timing and scheduling as well. So those are just a few things.
Yeah. How are they going to book with me? All of those things, all the communication parts that you do with your client. And you heard as Erica walked through that, oh, there's some things I need to pre-decide before I create this process. Am I using a Calendly scheduler of some sort? How am I taking payment? All those kinds of things. So before sometimes we create a process, we need to know some of this information, and we find out what's missing many times when we create that mind map. We go, oh, wait a second. Especially the first time through, if you're newer in this space, the second or third time that you go back and review your process, it's a little bit different. But the first time, there's many things that come up of, I don't have that yet. I don't have that yet. So then we
Well,
go to
and
writing
Teresa,
it down. Go ahead, Erica.
just as we were talking, just like you just said, and how's your client going to schedule with you? This is such a beautiful place to work collaboratively with a coach
Mhm.
or with someone in accountability that can hear and say, oh, what about this? Because your clients are going to ask. And so it only provides some confidence and security for you and for them as well as you're building trust in that onboarding process to know.
Yeah. So anything that a client might bring up for you might be a note that you make in your process to go, oh, that's something I need to go back and add into my process. That's why I say these are living, breathing documents, because if it comes up once, it'll probably come up again. You weren't clear about in your process. And so you'll want to go back and add that step in some way, shape, or form. So now we're writing it down, and writing it down is as simple as step one, I do this. Step two, I do this. Step three, I do this. This is not getting into the details to me. It's an overview of the process. Here's the things I do. And this has been in my experience. We used to do very detailed processes, and we've learned to make them a little bit more high level. And especially if you're still a solopreneur, it really is acting as a checklist. And the benefit of a process is thinking things through before they actually happen. So it's very closely related to pre-decision. I've pre-decided what I'm going to do. And now I have relief and confidence when I get on that call with the client, and I can keep a record of, yes, I've done all these steps because I have it written down. Most of us are not onboarding clients every day. At best, we might be doing once a week, but it's really, there might be 2 or 3 months that go by before you have a new client. And you're like, oh, what did I do last time? That's the question that I often used to say to myself, what did I do last time when this came up? Writing it down step by step. And then the last part of the 5 stages is actually reviewing it on a regular time frame. Coming back, whether that's every quarter, I'm going to review a couple of my processes, or once a year, I'm going to go through them. Or when a question gets asked about this, and I say, ooh, I have a broken system here, I have a broken process, I go back and review it. How does that come up for you as you think about your business, Erica?
It actually takes me way back, even before I was a coach, to when you and I were working in the church space and training and equipping people to work in the creative arts ministry. And I'm thinking about us training people to lead in that space, having those steps written down for someone else to be able to then empower others and to do things if we were gone, whatever it is. But we were able to then set up rhythms of review with team meetings, with those types of things. And that happens in my business as well. And with our team in the real life process too. We have a regular rhythm of reviewing it. You said something impactful for our network recently, Teresa. You said, if it's not written down, it's hard to review. Documenting it is really key in the work that you're doing.
And just to share like real life experiences, we just had our monthly core team meeting yesterday. And one of the things I had under, we follow this process. And so in our meeting, we have a place for problems. And one of the things, we'll talk about that next week, I believe. One of the things that I had written there was we need to update a couple of our processes. We had some things happen. A lot of times things show up when somebody's gone. If you have other people that are working with you, when they're gone, you notice the gap. And we had a couple of situations that fell through the cracks because somebody was on vacation, every right to go on vacation and be gone. And we really honor people's vacations when they step away. We're like, shut it all down. We're not going to be in touch with you. We're not going to ask. And we had a client who needed something, and we did not know where it was. They needed a coupon code for something to purchase, and we didn't know where it lived because this particular person created those. They knew where they lived. And we had to dig pretty deeply through all of our stuff, which took some time away from another person's job to do that. Neither person was in fault. Nobody was in fault. It just wasn't processed of somebody needs this. This is where you find it. Here's the link. So I would say too, when you think about writing down your processes, one thing that you might consider, is there a link you want to put in there? Is there a software or a scheduling link or something that you're always going to want to go draw because it goes in the client email? What can you set up that can you write a templated email? And that's like the fifth step of I send this email and here's the link to that email, copy, and I change the name and I change this. So you can get more creative, but first just write down the steps. You can always go back and add some of those things in as you go along. So I think the next part of this is, choosing how you're going to identify the processes if you have people that are working on your team. So I'll talk a little bit at a team level here is who's responsible for that process. Just like the situation I just shared, like where does it fall in somebody's scope of work? Is there somebody who owns that one? Make sure it's updated, those types of things. Is it part of their job description? One of the ways I do our scopes of work here is really thinking about what are all the processes that person owns and has ownership of. And that's what I call it. You can do that by departments, you can do it by job descriptions. There's lots of different ways to identify. Does it fit the role? Does it fit the job description? Does it fall under a department? And this is thinking at a little bit bigger level than a solopreneur. But as you're building at the beginning of your business, if you can think through even some of these things of, wow, if I ever hired a virtual assistant 3 to 5 hours a week, this is a process that they could do. And I wouldn't have to. I would just say, hey, I had an onboarding call with this person. I need to onboard them. And they would take over and they would do the 5 or 6 steps to onboard. And you could do the things that only you can do. So any thoughts there, Erica?
I think as a solopreneur, really making this applicable, thinking about what are the things that I do weekly? What are the things that I do daily? What are the things I do monthly or quarterly? And so if you're even looking for ways to structure this and identify your processes, you might start even with kind of that time range so that you know how often to review. And it just helps to give you some structure.
And as you say that, I think that's great wisdom there to say, what are the things I do weekly, monthly, and quarterly?
Mm.
So if I was going to write out processes as a brand new person, or if you're just starting to dive into this and you're like, I need this, been in business for 5 years, I've never had this stuff, go out to the quarterly ones first, because those are the ones that you probably don't remember how to do as well because you don't do them as often. I know how to do my laundry because I do it a lot throughout the week. So I know how much detergent to put in and all of that. But there are times where with certain garments, like I have to stop and read the tag and take some more time and get the right things because I don't wash that item as often. I don't know why that came to mind, but I must be thinking about laundry. But I'm just saying, if you don't do it as often, start there so that you feel that safety and security of, okay, I have that written down. If you do some numbers tracking on a monthly basis, only do it once a month. Part of the process me by what day of the month do I want to do that? Do I want it done by the 5th for the month before or the 30 days before that? What feels good to you in that? So I love that of what do I do weekly? What do I do daily? What do I do quarterly? I think that's a really good way to look for it. And then if you do have a team, you might look at roles, job descriptions, or departments in that way. Another thing that I think is important, and you can see all this on the outline that we have for you, you might write them as checklists. That might feel good to you if I got a little box beside it. I would say 1 page if possible. Again, we know this from experience. We made processes that were way too long and way too detailed, and then we never used them. Maybe it's bullet pointed. What do you read easily? Steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bullet points, checklists, 1 page. And then I think the other important thing is use the same language. I can't say that enough. As you develop out, what do you call it? Is it your monthly financials? Is it year-end review? What's language that comes out of your mouth that you say over and over again and listen for that language so that you can use it across the board of all of your processes. Any thoughts there?
Well, language matters. And so the consistency with which you talk about your business also helps to strengthen the confidence and just the ownership you have as faith-based entrepreneurs going, okay, if God's the CEO of my business, I want to be a good steward of the things that I'm taking care of. And so how am I setting myself up for success using words that matter and that are understandable for me or my team? And so just really choosing words that matter is important.
And as we've been talking about this, I think there's a mindset piece here. When you have a process for bringing on a new client, or even you've come to the end of a work with client and you have an offboarding process, you want it to be a great experience for them because more and more clients will come back to you if you offboard well. They've already built a relationship. They're going to reach out again if there's a good experience. Your confidence grows when you're ready and prepared. So as you're prepared with the processes that you need, I think those conversations, you're aware at a different level of, wow, I have a process around my finances. I have a process around onboarding a client, offboarding a client. I have a process around the kinds of tools that I use and how I might send them out to clients. Those things build your confidence in treating it like a business. That's the reason we're doing this series is how do you show up as a business owner, not a side hustle? Not, well, this is something I hope works. And if it doesn't, no big deal.
Yeah.
There's a mindset behind each of these 7Ps that shifts for you when you say, I have a business. It can be part-time, it can be full-time, but I have a business and I have a process for how I do things in my business.
That's so good. And we talk about the P of product, and we can look at even a consumer experience. Look at Amazon and go, do they have processes? Yes. If you're returning something, if you're purchasing, whatever it is, all the things. But if we value that our product is a service in that same way, we need to hold ourselves even accountable to have some of those things in place for the sake of just honoring the work we're doing and the value we bring to the clients we serve.
So, friends, we want to encourage you to choose one process. I think Erica named a great one for you. No matter how long you've been in business, I would say look at your onboarding process. If you've been in business for a while, review it. Take time to say, that's one I need to look at so I'm ready and I'm prepared. And just reflect on, are my processes written in a way that supports my business? Or do they hold back my business because I'm not confident? And that's what we mean by, do they hold back the flow of business that's coming to me? In your preparation, God will provide. God will provide what we're prepared for. And I truly believe that. And I've seen that in my own business. The more that I prepare well through many of these 7Ps, but especially this, what am I going to do if they come? What am I going to do if the revenue starts to come? What am I going to do with this or that? There's several things. What am I going to do? It could just be 3 simple steps is all that there is. But how do I write that down and know, where do I store it? Where is it readily accessible to me? And where have I pre-decided what I want those things to look like? So been good to be with you today, friends. Erica, thanks for walking through even your own journey with process and onboarding and those types of things. We really talked about one specific one, but if you go back and look in our resource, there are processes for hiring people. There are processes for projects. And so when I mentioned the attorney earlier, I don't want to miss that point. When you're working with other people and having a contract or something like that's where an attorney might come into play, or even your coaching contract, depending on how in depth it is and what all it involves. Usually you can come up with a contract there through some other resources. But for some of you, it might be worth someone outside of in the legal profession looking at it because it is a legal document. That's why I have attorney listed there in the process is more around the people part of things than anything when you're onboarding someone or bringing on a client just to look at that contract. So, Erica, anything else that comes to mind for you as we talk about processes?
I think just be gentle with yourself. If you're noticing resistance and this feels it's constricting for you, start small. As you just said, open-handedly looking, is this really helping me to support me? Or are there places that I'm holding myself back, that just something simple there could create some margin, allow me to accept help or move forward in a more efficient way?
And we always want to encourage you, if you'd like to continue this conversation, one of the easiest places to connect with Erica or I or anyone else from our team here at the Relay Process is to join our free community. We have a free community on the Circle platform and no advertisement, no stuff there off the social media platforms. It's our own private community of people. It's absolutely free. And you can get there by going to therelayprocess.com and then click on the community tab. It will just create an email and a login, and you're right inside. And then up in the corner, there's a little message place where you can send Erica or I, either one, a message and say, hey, I listened to this podcast, or I've listened to the whole series. Before we hit record, Erica was like, I had somebody tell me they've been listening to this series and it was really helpful for them. This is one that we've created so you can go back and reference it again and again, get the download, use the checklists and the different things that are in there. But if you have a specific question, come on over to the Circle platform inside of our community and message either one of us. That's where we would direct you to be in contact with us. And you can read more about Erica and her business and me and my business also in the show notes in the bios, so we can connect with you there. It's been a good day, friends. We usually record these podcasts at the end of the day, in the middle of the week. And much like you, we come to the close of the day and we're celebrating great things that have happened within the day and maybe even some hard conversations, or all of it belongs. But what I always encourage you to do is remember that every ordinary day, and this has been an ordinary day on a Wednesday, but it has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. So great to be with you today, friends.
Have a blessed week, everyone.